Hi everyone, it's DM Captain Obvious, and I've just been paired on leadchess.org in the 30-minute pool with CRPx07. We're going to go ahead and play a Closed Sicilian here. I might try to go for a Grand Prix attack, depending on how CRP decides to handle the situation. Now, if Knight d4 hits the board, I am going to go ahead and play Knight f3 and allow him to take this bishop. It's a line that has served me pretty well over the board, and I like the positions I get. So Queen c2 is also fine. Moves like a6. I've telegraphed my intention with bishop b5, where I am trying to damage his pawn structure. Of course, giving up the bishop pair is something that a lot of people prefer to avoid in the opening. But I think that you do get some interesting imbalances, particularly when you're playing an unknown commodity. Getting those imbalances is a good way to try to get winning positions. I think I still want to maintain f4 as an idea, so I'm going to go ahead and develop my king's knight to e2, which also supports f2, f4, and prepares castling. He hasn't yet made me take his knight, so maybe in some lines I can decide I don't want to. Like now, actually, I can consider keeping this bishop because there will never be e6 played. So now we can envision our bishop on this a2 to f7 diagonal, putting very good pressure on f7. So now I might not want to give up my bishop. In fact, I want to possess this d5 square right now, because it comes with a tempo. And honestly, even if he plays like queen b6, I don't have to move the bishop because I still have knight c7 forking the b5 square with his king. So this is indirectly going to defend my bishop if he plays queen b6. And this is just a lovely post for my knight. e5, I think, is already a pretty bad move in these positions. I think a6, d6, g6 are all much more logical in terms of forcing me to make a decision with my bishop, opening the eyes of his light square bishop, or preparing perhaps to fianchetto and castle safely to the king side. Maybe black even daydreams of f5 breaks, but I think that's generally not the plan in these positions. So queen d6. We're just going to go ahead and reinforce this knight. Now he is going to make me make my decision. Do I want to keep that bishop? And I do. I had mentioned I really like this now that e5 has been played. I think his light squares have become very soft. So I want to keep this guy. I don't think I want to come to c4 because he just plays b5 with tempo. So I think I'm actually going to drop all the way back to e2 and look to castle and maybe d3 and f2, f4 at some point. Now this doesn't really bother me, given that I've already reinforced my knight on d5. So knight takes, and we're quite happy. So I think we're just going to go ahead and prepare to bring my dark square bishop into the game, prepare f2, f4, and just we're going to sit on this position. b6. So he wants to put his bishop on b7. I don't think that's gonna help him in this position. I could take this pawn. I'm not entirely sure I need to. I think castling is probably just fine as well. It is a free pawn, though. Yeah, okay, we'll take the free pawn. I don't think that there's a tremendously huge difference. This position is already really bad for black. I guess I'm probably overstating moving this guy. I don't think the b file will give him any play. The question is, do I actually come to c4 if rook b8? And I think I do. I think I do. This knight can still come here to d5, and now I start to control some critical squares, and the knight here also will defend b2, so I can develop this dark square bishop. This queen has just been ridiculous the whole game. Here and here was not a maneuver that you ever want to really do with black. In a lot of Sicilians, if the hope is to actually play d5 at some point and break in the center, and this is obviously inhibiting this pawn from moving. So not the greatest maneuver, I think. I believe we're going to be able to punish CRP for this. Now he's in a lot of danger. I don't think that's a good square for the queen. We're going to go ahead and open up the position and look to castle short, use this half-open f-file. Things are going to... Wow. So he does go ahead and play d5, but that's just giving me a fork. He takes with the knight. Can I deflect his queen? Okay, so hang on. f5, knight takes knight. Pawn takes, knight takes queen, pawn takes. And I've got... Obviously, I get his knight at the end as well. I've ruined his castling. I win another pawn. But is that position what I want to play? I mean, his knight is trapped. So I don't even need to capture it immediately. I guess he could go out and take b2. Well, I could castle, actually, after... So f5, knight takes knight, pawn takes queen, knight takes queen, pawn takes check, king takes, castle short is check, and then we recapture the knight. And that's winning. Knight takes knight, also something I guess I should consider. Knight takes knight, queen takes knight, castle short, probably also winning if I want to play a position with queens on the board. You know what, let's go for it. Let's see if he decides to give me a full piece with queen takes pawn. I guess he could also play queen d7. I guess if he plays queen d7, it's a little annoying in that the queens stay on, but I haven't opened up the f-file. So maybe knight takes knight was more precise. But that's okay. I think that both are healthy advantages for white here. So he's going to calculate the same line I just did. I think he's looking at knight takes knight, pawn takes, knight takes, pawn takes, king takes. And then I think he might be thinking if knight b2 reclaims his pawn. No, he does actually find queen d7. Okay. Well, I guess we do take the knight now and castle, I imagine. Let's look at other moves just in case. Something like bishop f3. I guess he just would take my knight then. And I don't think I've really accomplished anything. I could also just castle. Again, he just takes knight. Do I want a structure where I have a pawn on this d4 square to try to prevent his knight from coming in? I mean, if I just play knight takes, I always have c3 to do the same thing without a doubled pawn, so I don't think that that's necessary in terms of controlling this square. The other thing is I don't have to castle. I can play knight takes, queen takes, bishop f3 in that position, and then gain a tempo. Now if he plays queen d5 trying to prevent me from castling, it just drops his knight with check, so that's no good. So he has to drop his queen back and then I can castle. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, I think that this is still very healthy. It's a pretty good advantage here, close to winning if not already winning. I don't think that there's any way for him to hold on to these pawns as the game continues. They're just huge targets in that they're isolated, and I still have my bishop pair, and this knight is doing an amazing job on c4, so I just don't see any way that he can make progress. He still needs to find a way to get his king to safety, And in that time, I'm going to activate pieces and start likely picking up a second and probably a third pawn. At that point, it's just a very simple technical win. I can just push these guys. Even if he plays very solidly, it should just be... I think we're already at a point where I see a way to win pretty cleanly here. We're just going to blast him on the queen side. Of course, he could still drop material or present an opportunity for a mating net, but I think that right now it's going to be pretty straightforward in terms of what I'm going to be trying to do here in this position. I don't think there's much choice here. He kind of has to go back to d7. The knight guards here, the pawn guards here. This just drops the knight. And, you know, obviously that drops the knight too. So, queen d7 is going to be played. And then I guess I castle short. Whoa, he's just going to give me the piece. All right. Well, now it's even worse. We're just going to clear things off. I guess I could now in this position play queen f3, not to give him queen d5, guard this. And if queen d5, maybe I can consider something like this or this. And this should now just be... now it's no longer even necessary to look for technical wins with the pawns. It's a clean piece. These pawns are still weak. It's just a completely dominant position. Queen d8 was just a blunder. It was unnecessary. I don't know what he must have been afraid of there, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Okay, so he's going to go ahead and defend e5, which I guess was hanging. Oops. Yeah. Queen f3 maybe played a little hastily. Okay. Yeah, this was probably better, but that's fine. We're still much better. I think I can just play f6 here if I want. It looks absolutely crushing. F6 takes, and maybe he plays rook g8 and tries to get counterplay. Maybe I don't want that. I could just castle short. Maybe I want to... Is there a huge difference between castling short and playing f6 right now? Will he play f6? Does that make my life harder if I don't play f6? So, like, if I castle short and he plays f6, I have to play much slower, I imagine, which is still winning. You know, I can play, like, bishop e3 and queen f2 and still pile on the c pawn if I want. I could... I mean, there's so many different ways to win in this position. Am I worried about him playing f6 is the big question between castling and playing f6 myself. I keep putting off castling, but I don't know if it's really that necessary. I can also develop my bishop. The knight still does guard b2, so there is no rook takes b2. But I'm going to play f6, I think. Is there really a huge difference? And then rook g8. Oh, of course there's a difference. If takes, then takes, and I'm on his bishop twice, and his rook, there's a fork. He can't take this pawn. He needs to play bishop back. Wow. Lucky find for me here. We might be able to go up another piece. Okay, so this is now really scary for him. This is really nice. This pawn is a huge thorn in his position. If he does castle, it's basically he's getting checkmated. Although queen d5, rook d8, have I accomplished anything? I mean, he's just completely hogtied. Again, I could castle. Again, I could castle. And that's completely fine as well. I could even try to castle queenside. Although I don't know where I want my dark square bishop to go. I don't think I want to play bishop h6, even though that does pretty much kill this guy, preventing him from castling. Then he might play bishop f8 to trade the dark square bishops, and I am going to go ahead and play queen d5. I don't think we need to think too hard on this. I'm sure castling, again, is fine. Maybe someday I'll actually do it. But I mean, queen d5 and then rook c8 is pretty forcing. Or pardon me, rook d8 is pretty forcing. And then I guess after rook d8, now I can play bishop h6. And if bishop back, I can start trading things and just have a very clean win if I want. Yeah, okay. So this is pretty bad. I wonder if he plays bishop f8 here. I guess I just take this pawn. I don't really need to trade queens yet. Oh wow, that's really nasty actually. Then he has to play bishop here. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So no bishop f8. No bishop f8. And now I might castle long and just center my rooks, and this is getting out of hand, actually. This guy is completely dead. All these guys are dead. It's like he's down a piece. Go figure. But CRP, I think we can go over the opening again after the game. And I'm pretty sure that we'll look at some of the mainline stuff with queen c2, which is playable, but I do think you play a6 and force the decision in those lines. Certainly not e5. A6 is probably for choice, although d6 and g6 I imagine are played frequently as well in those positions. We're just going to get on with what I was talking about. We'll put a rook on e1. We can always choose which rook. I don't think it really makes a difference. He doesn't have anything to do. He doesn't have anything to do. So he can just keep pushing. It doesn't really matter. I don't think I'm going to use the f file. I might actually play d4 at some point, so we'll just take this guy soon. I guess my takes. I mean, it's all winning. It's all winning at this point. It's been winning for some time now, but this is beyond decisive, if there's such a thing. Oof. No. No. Yeah. Okay, let's be precise here, because I think there might actually be a knight d6 move that completely crushes. Oh my gosh, that's so lovely. What about queen c6? Queen takes queen, rook takes is checkmate. The queen is now pinned, and I am threatening knight d6 mate. Oh, that's lovely. That's filthy. I love that. This is really nice. I am patting myself on the back, but, you know, finding a mate like this is always delightful. Queen takes queen, rook takes bishop is mate. And otherwise knight d6 mate. So, really nice finish here. But I think that after e5 and, you know, this queen coming to d6, the position was already, if not already untenable, it was pretty close to untenable for black. The moves, and there are many different Sicilians out there for black to choose from. And most of them are going to be a6, g6, or pardon me, a6, d6, or g6. So let's go ahead and take a look at this game. We'll shut the engine off, do a little bit of review with just our brains. It's always good to go over your games. I think it's one of the best ways to improve for pretty much everybody. It's good to review them as soon as you can, and then review the game again later to see if you find anything else. We'll go ahead and just do this and then use an engine as we have in prior videos. I really like the Closed Sicilian. there's a lot of different things you can do in terms of tricking people back into open Sicilians. Obviously, you're not bound to go for Grand Prix setups. You can still go for knight to f3 in different positions. So sometimes, and I've actually had this over the board where players who normally would play things like a dragon get tricked into a con, players want to play a certain Sicilian against an open, but then they just get jumbled up because they see knight c3 instead of knight f3. And I think this is very, very fine. And of course, you can still always go for the Grand Prix attack, which has taken some hits over the years in terms of computers making it less of a potent attack than it had been in prior years. Many more defensive ideas are out there, but it's still, I think, very playable. This is good. I think that after bishop b5, you do want to play knight d4. We'll go ahead and take a look. Yeah, knight d4. And this is still really good for white in terms of master games. But black is fine. Black is fine. Queen c2 is not a move listed, actually. Wow. Wait, I just missed it here. Queen c7. Gosh. Another cup of coffee. That's what I need right here. Queen c7, queen c2. Goodness. Queen c7, and it's pretty far down the list. Knight f6 scores the best. I'll have to look at that. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. And yeah, okay, so only 2 games in the database with this position, but I think that if we turn the engine on, a6, d6, or g6 are all reasonable moves. I personally would lean towards a6 and ask white, particularly now that the e2 square is taken, if I want to give him the bishop pair, which I would. But yeah, this is pretty reasonable for black. This is not a good move. It's just not a good move. This weakens critical light squares, and it makes it harder to play this d5 break profitably. Now, black did go ahead and play d7, d5 anyways later in the game, but it was not good, and it only served to further illustrate how weak those light squares would be, and it ended up actually costing him a piece, although queen d8 instead of queen d7 was just a blunder. Yeah, this knight is gorgeous. Now it's too late to play a6. I'm going to hang on to the bishop. And this is just ideal. This is such a classical structure, except now instead of having knight on f3, I have this beautiful knight on d5, which is just so much better for me. And here it's a pawn, but I mean, I don't know if I even need to take it. A pawn's a pawn. You're hardly ever going to be wrong to take a free pawn. And of course, rerouting to c4 proved to be quite valuable. This knight was extremely strong. It blanketed this rook, so there was never play. And then, of course, we ended up having that wonderful threat at the very end for checkmate. The queen is just out of place. She entered the battle too quickly. She should still be on d8, and there should be moves like g6 and bishop g7 on the board, or d6 and g6 even. Just this should look very different in terms of what a Sicilian player should be going for. And yeah, at this point, I'm sure that knight takes knight is good. Probably castles is fine. I think at this point it's a matter of flavor. This gives them an opportunity to go wrong. Queen takes pawn, knight takes knight. So I tend to err on the side of allowing my opponent to make mistakes. If I can't see a measurable difference between moves, I try to just let my opponent dig their own grave if possible. And here, just queen d7. But this just is pretty clean. Maybe I should have grabbed that pawn. I don't know if it makes a huge difference. This is already pretty dead. Yeah. Yeah, and this was nice. I felt good about this, obviously. It's always nice to find a move like this. It's not that hard to find this if you're doing tactics every day, or if you're just generally... Well, if you're naturally creative, you should find it pretty easily. But for someone like me, I have to do study every day or nearly every day, just doing tactics, helping improve your vision. That's going to be a huge part for especially any player, but especially new players. Studying tactics and starting to really recognize patterns is going to really help you win games, much more than even studying things like opening theory or pawn structures even. But tactics, brute calculation, like end game studies, which no one wants to do, but it's really good for newer players. And of course, playing and reviewing your own games and trying to take something is going to be the best way to improve. This is just very direct. If queen takes, then we have checkmate, and of course, any other move, and we also have checkmate. Quite lovely, with everything being pinned. So yeah, pretty good game. Let's go ahead and see if I missed anything with Stockfish here. I think that pretty much covers what needs to be said about the game. I have a lot of games that follow this line, like this. And this is quite good for white, in my opinion. We see here that it scores very well. I have played this 2 or 3 times over the board, and I won every game with it, so I obviously have a fondness for it. 3 games over the board, yeah. There was some interesting stuff. Oh, goodness. He's Egypt's #1. What is his name? I know he's Egypt's best player. He played a line here, and so did a really strong 2600 from India. I'm blanking on names, but they were able. The knight never recaptured, and there were some really interesting positions. I think maybe we could find. Maybe it's not in the Lee chess database. Well, I know there's some really interesting lines if the knight stays on d4 as well. But we didn't see that. We saw queen c2, which is fine. But I do think here you want to, yeah. So, a mistake. We'll have to look at that. I do think a6 here is after knight e2. Knight ge2, pardon me. Yeah, knight f6. Interesting. I'm sure that's fine too. Everything's fine. I think g6, d6, or a6 would be what I'd be considering. Knight f6 is obviously fine as well. e6, yeah. Because e6 prepares d5 as well. And it's just such a useful move. Opens up squares, opens up development. You can always play a6 later. e6 makes a lot of sense as well because a move like bc4 and then allowing b5 and then here, well, if I had played d3, it's less appealing. I would have to have a pawn on d3 to prevent some kind of Noah's Ark. But e6 is good, and then this. I think there's a pretty simple improvement, and black would have a much better game. e5 is just not correct, and yeah, the evaluation jumps immediately. And I think from this point on, I mentioned that this is already very close to untenable. If you let it think, I bet you it'll stabilize, between 1.1, 1.3, which is not a place you ever want to be. Yeah, and dropping the pawn is just, I don't even know if it makes a difference. Yeah. Okay, so f4 already. Yeah, everything is very good here. White's just very healthily ahead. Taking the pawn is fine, obviously. Yeah. Not much to say after this point. I think we covered everything. I don't know why he didn't play queen d7. I don't know what he was afraid of. Bishop e4, castles. Okay, yeah, everything. I don't know what he was afraid of here. Maybe he just was seeing ghosts. Maybe he was worried about bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, but, queen takes. I don't know. Wait a minute, what am I even talking about? Is that, yeah. Maybe he was afraid of this, but this doesn't work. He has this. So maybe I guess here he doesn't like this position. I mean, it's hard to imagine liking this position less than just dropping the knight for nothing. I don't know what happened. Maybe he just didn't see queen d7. Sometimes that happens. You just have a blind spot. But he drops the piece, and the position's pretty untenable. Is this my mistake? Not taking the pawn? What is my mistake? Yeah, okay. Oops, should have taken the pawn. I just wanted to develop my pieces and get everything centered, but, you know, yeah, I don't think it makes a huge difference at this point. Yeah, and this is nice. This is nice. We'll look at it one more time because I'm pretty proud of finding it. Lots of mates on the board, of course, but Queen C6 is the best mate, and of course it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing, so I haven't looked at these, but I'm pretty sure that none of them are going to be more aesthetically pleasing than Queen C6. But yeah, that's it for that, I guess. Looks like it was a pretty smooth game. Wow, start to finish. There we go. Front to back. I am a little tired, but I will be back for more videos later this week. Hopefully you took something from this one. Good luck in your chess, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.